Welcome to today's webinar, Compete with Hyperscalers using CloudStack-based public cloud. A few things in the beginning. This webinar will be approximately 45 minutes, and you can ask questions on the chat window during the webinar. At the end of the event, we will have a Q&A. So at any time you have any questions or anything you would like to ask our speakers, just type it on the chat window and I will ask the questions at the end. We are also live streaming the webinar on YouTube, and after the event, we will send you a recording of the slides and the video from the webinar. We have two amazing speakers today. The first one is Giles Arrett, who is the CEO and founder of Shea Blue, and the second one is Sunando Bhattacharya, who is CEO of Indicus Technologies. I will give the word to them so that they can introduce themselves.
Thank you, Yvette. Hello, everybody. As Yvette says, I'm Giles. I'm CEO of Shea Blue. I guess most people on this webinar, of which there are lots of people today, know who Shea Blue are. We as a company build IaaS environments predominantly for service providers, but also increasingly for enterprises as well. And I'm looking forward today to sharing some of the insights that we've learned from working with lots of different service provider organizations over the last 10 years.
Hey everyone, this is Sunando Bhattacharya. I'm the founder and CEO of Indicus Technologies. We are an India-based software startup. We provide a complete platform solution for cloud businesses and enable them to run locally hosted public cloud services and compete with hyperscalers. And we built our platform on top of CloudStack, and we work very closely with Shea Blue on taking CloudStack forward.
I was expecting Yvette to jump back in then, Sunando, but she might have disappeared off. She might have disappeared off the webinar. That's a great start.
No, I'm still here. Thank you for the introduction. So yeah, it's a pleasure to have you here for the webinar, and I will give the word entirely to you because I know you have interesting information, ideas, and hints which you will share with our webinar's attendees. Okay,
thanks, Yvette. Okay, so just to explain the format here, we're going to split this down into two halves. I'm going to speak for a few minutes, and then Sunando's going to speak for a few minutes. Really, what I'm trying to get over here, the title of this webinar is building clouds to compete with the hyperscalers. What I'm trying to get over here is why you should do it, how you should do it, and the art of the possible. And a lot of that, in our world, focuses around Apache CloudStack because it enables service providers to go and compete with the hyperscalers. Sunando is then going to talk more specifically around the tooling that they provide as a company, which provides some of the commercialization layer that service providers, the monetization layer that service providers need on top of something like CloudStack. So we're going to look at how to build at a very, very high level, how to build an IaaS environment. Not a huge amount of technical detail here, I'm afraid. In what it'll be 25 minutes or 45 minutes, it's pretty hard to go into detail. But this is more the business case of why and how you can go and do that. How to choose a cloud management platform. We're going to then drill down and look specifically at why increasingly people are getting drawn to Apache CloudStack, and then talk about some of the monetization subjects that I mentioned Sunando is going to run us through. So just in terms of background, I've told you about Shea Blue, what we do as a company. We are specialists in building IaaS platforms, and we work with many of the world's largest service providers, but outside of that hyperscaler space. So the hyperscalers, the Amazon, the Microsoft, the Googles of this world, they do their own thing. At Shea Blue, we tend to work with the next tier of service providers, who are network service providers, telcos who are evolving into cloud service providers, or startup cloud service providers. One thing I get asked a lot when I start speaking to the sort of CEOs of this organization, they're thinking about getting into delivering things like IaaS, is, should I really be doing this? Isn't the entire world going to Amazon? Isn't the entire world going to Amazon, Microsoft, and Google? And what I can share with those organizations, before Shea Blue, I used to run a service provider. I used to run a managed service provider based here in the UK, and we were having exactly the same, this is going back a number of years, but exactly the same discussions. We see this inevitable march towards the hyperscalers. We see more and more workloads across planet Earth going towards them. Why? What is the business case for somebody who is not them to build their own offering? And I think if we roll that forward to sort of now, 2020, 2021, it's worth just looking at the markets. The overall IaaS markets, this was last year. I've got some updated figures in a second, 64 billion. And Amazon own an incredible 41% of that. You know, so out of every 10 IaaS workloads, Amazon are running 4 of them. That is incredible. And that might be quite depressing from a service provider's viewpoint. But what I'm interested in is the others, right? So that others is everybody else outside of the hyperscalers. And we've got Alibaba included because actually they're bigger than Google when it comes to IaaS now. And if we look, and this is based on some work that Gartner do every year of the analysis of the IaaS public cloud world, okay? If we just look at the growth over the last few years, okay, we can see the overall market growth is shooting up. So in 2020 there it is 64 billion. End of this year it will be up at 90 billion. But what's really interesting to me is this small figure down at the bottom, which is others, which is the market outside of the hyperscalers. And this year that market alone is estimated by Gartner to be at $22 billion. So even though the hyperscalers are taking this increasing market share and making these huge businesses, there is still a $22 billion global market in IaaS outside of the top tier hyperscalers. And what gets really interesting is if you extrapolate that forward, that's an exponential growth curve. And if you look at that, roll forward to say 2026, just that others part of the IaaS market is going to be a $78 billion market. Okay, that is a significant market by anybody's standards. And what I'm just trying to get over here is, yes, there is a significant market. Once you remove even, you know, the top 5, the top 6, the hyperscalers, there is still a very big market. Now, obviously, the overall market itself is estimated to be at 300 billion plus. Okay, but my view on that is ignore that. You know, the pie is getting bigger, and yes, the hyperscalers are getting a great big share of that pie, but the small slice of that pie that is for others, for people like you who are on this call today, is still a huge global market. So hopefully you've seen there that you know there is a market there. There's a market that's worth looking at. The question is why, as a service provider, you would do it. Okay, yeah, there's a market there, but why get into this sort of business? And the bottom line is, you know, if you do this correctly, IaaS is an incredibly high margin business. Okay, Amazon, Google, Microsoft are all in this for a reason, and they're in it for a reason that they can turn infrastructure at the back into high value services at the front with incredible rates of margin. It's also a very sticky business. It's a sticky business particularly in things like the traditional managed service provider sector, who have always struggled to get that long-term stickiness from their customers. Running your customers' infrastructure in your IaaS environment creates a much deeper technical relationship between you, their infrastructure, and them as an organization. That starts to map out into, you know, specific use cases. These use cases are really often sort of things that, you know, reasons people don't want to use hyperscalers. And the big one we're seeing a lot at the moment, I know Sanando and the guys over there are seeing the same thing, is this development of regional, in-country, sovereign clouds. And this is all related to data sovereignty. You know, at the end of the day, the large hyperscalers are still US-based companies. Yes, they've got regions everywhere, but for compliance, regulatory, legal reasons, the case for people wanting to use localized cloud providers, but still get the benefit of the self-service, the orchestration they get from an IaaS environment from a hyperscaler, is driving a lot of these smaller regional cloud plays. Connected services, so telcos who traditionally have sold a lot of connectivity, a lot of bandwidth, are able to connect those services in with their IaaS offerings. And again, that's going full circle. It's increasing margin, it's increasing stickiness for those customers. Pull along services as well in terms of what can be layered on top in terms of application services, that sort of thing for customers. And I think the key message here is, yes, there is we could call it an oligopoly developed between the big players. Some may argue, you know, Amazon ultimately becoming more and more of a monopoly, but there is still a massive room in the market for these nuances which sit outside of the strategy of those hyperscalers. So hopefully you can see there, you know, there is a rationale for building IaaS, and that's why we're seeing increasing demand in the service provider space. Question is, how do you do it? These blocks are basically, I think I saw these blocks 12, 13 years ago when I was listening to somebody from Amazon explaining to me what Amazon EC2 was all that time ago, and this hasn't changed. Ultimately, infrastructure as a service is about taking some networking, some compute, and some storage, packaging that up normally through a virtualization layer. It can be done bare metal, but it's normally done through a hypervisor, some sort of virtualization layer, putting an orchestration layer over the top. And this is the glue that holds all of this together. This is what allows the self-service. It allows people to access those components underneath through a self-service portal and to manage themselves. That normally presents an API, and then we put an e-commerce platform over the top. And Amazon all those years ago, you know, they were already selling books and CDs and all those sort of things. So they had a pre-built e-commerce platform ready to go. But these were basically the building blocks they took to build Amazon EC2. We're still using those building blocks now. We have some very specific sets of blocks we use here at Shea Blue. First of all, you know, the networking, storage, compute, that's generally commodity. And one of the advantages we work with predominantly with Apache CloudStack, is we're pretty agnostic as to what networking, storage, and compute sits underneath. And then we have a choice of hypervisor. Again, one of the advantages of Apache CloudStack we have is that it is hypervisor agnostic. So this is really customer preference, how they want to deliver services to their customers. We then bolt Apache CloudStack. I'm going to talk about that in more detail in a second over the top. That presents its own API. Okay, and then we need some sort of e-commerce platform. There are choices in the market here. The fact we're doing a webinar with Indicus today points towards the fact that we have some preferences, and Indicus have got a great product called Hyperscalers, and that does that commercialization, that monetization piece over the top. But also organizations may bolt other services over the top as well in terms of automation tooling, developer tooling, and if it's a private cloud use case, they may have lots of other things, you know, infrastructure as code tooling, that sort of thing. So in terms of you going and building an environment like this, the very, very high level steps, obviously identify your market and proposition. I wouldn't advise you do that based on the one slide I've shown you so far. I'd advise you to do a little bit more analysis of what you're trying to achieve. But what is it? What's going to make your proposition different from your competitors, particularly from the hyperscalers? What use cases are you targeting? What particular market sectors are you targeting? It's then a question ultimately of building an infrastructure which is going to support your expected market penetration. Couple of headline things when designing an IaaS infrastructure. We always have this balance of functionality, features versus margin. The more sort of commodity and mainstream you make, it's easier to keep your margin high, but obviously you may find it hard to get market penetration without richer features, which ultimately will cost you more money and will impact your margin. So there's often a compromise and a balance there. The other important thing is to think about scale. And one of the mistakes we see people make is that, you know, they expect this massive exponential growth in the first year and go and build this huge environment to match that expected growth, which means they're never going to make any money because they're huge amounts of capex at the beginning. So identifying the scale points and really planning how you're going to scale that infrastructure is an absolutely key piece of planning to do at the beginning. We have this sort of ethos is, you know, design big but build small. So create a design for the environment that has an ability to scale very rapidly. And when you start to get this massive upsurge in customers, you can scale very rapidly to accommodate it, but you're not burning cash unnecessarily on infrastructure that's not being used. And finally, one of the key points is choose the orchestration platform. Everything else in my diagram there was pretty much commodity, right? So hardware in terms of, you know, compute, network, and storage is pretty much commodity. Hypervisor, choose any hypervisor, but you need to choose an orchestration layer carefully. And I just want to drill down on this in a little bit more detail. Headline choices, probably 95% of the orchestrated IaaS platforms out there are based on one of these 6 different options. There are other players in the market, but these are the ones at Shea Blue we see time and time again. And I've categorized these into sort of 2 camps here. We've got open source orchestration, and that's basically the 3 major projects: CloudStack, OpenStack, and OpenNebula. And then the main players we see in the proprietary side, VMware still play quite heavily with vCloud Director. And then there's a range of much smaller providers, people like OnApp and Flexient, who offer a sort of end-to-end service provider in a box style service. And I've just put, this isn't Gartner analysis, this is Giles's analysis. Just put these on a sort of graph with two sort of axes there: cost of ownership and functionality. Now, functionality is obviously important, because if you're choosing an orchestration platform, you want the one that is going to evolve. You want one that is going to accommodate, you know, new developments in hardware. It's going to accommodate new requirements from the users of that orchestration. So you need a constantly evolving platform. OpenStack, CloudStack, as 2 very big open source projects, are really the only or the best options on that front, because they're big open source projects being contributed to by hundreds of people. So they're constantly evolving to meet, you know, developments in underlying infrastructure, developments in integration points, etc., etc. And this is where these end-to-end guys, the Flexient, the OnApps of this world, start to struggle, because they're small software providers who just often can't keep up with the pace of what's going on. The other axis there is cost of ownership, and this is where it gets really interesting, because the natural assumption here would be that anything that is open source is going to be cheaper to own. And this is where OpenStack struggles. OpenStack is a very big, complicated orchestration platform made up of 30 plus sub projects. It costs a lot of money, a lot of time and effort to actually get OpenStack deployments working properly. You've got 2 choices. You can either invest thousands and thousands of man hours into doing that, or you go and buy a vendor distribution and pay them lots of money. Either way, it's an expensive product to own. CloudStack is a free and open source integrated product that is relatively cheap to own and competes on the functionality level. Now at Shea Blue, when we started designing IaaS environments for people, we were technology agnostic. We focused more on the strategy side and the commercial side of building IaaS, and we were determined to be technology agnostic. We got drawn more and more into CloudStack because we were being asked to advise technically by our customers, and we just found time and time again, in terms of the 2 metrics of functionality versus cost of ownership, it was a clear winner. And that's why today, roll forward, you know, we work exclusively with Apache CloudStack when it comes to orchestration. We work with a whole range of other technologies in terms of building the whole stack, but when it comes to orchestration, we're all about CloudStack. Just want to finish off with just a few notes about CloudStack. Scalable, open source, purpose-built orchestration platform. It was designed to do this at the beginning. It was designed with the service provider use case in mind. The reason we've been drawn to CloudStack, the reason our customers get drawn to CloudStack, first of all, it's an integrated product. Unlike other projects I was talking about, it's not a collection of 30 different things that have to be glued together. You install CloudStack, you've set some configuration, you're up and running with a POC in hours with Apache CloudStack. It's proven at scale. Largest ever deployment we were involved with was 40,000+ physical hosts. We work with a number of organizations that have 10,000+ physical hosts, all being orchestrated by CloudStack. It gives us rapid time to value, relatively low implementation operational costs. It's built as multi-tenant from the ground up, whereas some of the other platforms aren't multi-tenant platforms. They were designed as enterprise solutions initially. CloudStack was designed for the service provider market. CloudStack is free and open source, and it's managed by the Apache CloudStack, the Apache Software Foundation. What that means is you can be sure of the roadmap of Apache CloudStack. It's a user-contributed roadmap. You can contribute yourselves as organizations, but what we haven't got is a particular vendor who is going to suddenly change direction. And if that doesn't suit where you're going with your services, that you're in trouble and left high and dry. Just some of the key features. It's a self-service, obviously. That's the whole point of an IaaS environment. It's got web UI, command line, REST API. As I mentioned earlier, it's hypervisor agnostic. It's not tied to any particular hypervisor. We offer support for Kubernetes clusters. It has its own enterprise-grade virtual networking model, so users can build their own complex networks inside of Apache CloudStack. It's highly scalable. It provides HA capabilities. A bit more detail here, but the key things for me, it's turnkey. It gives a low cost of ownership. That's why our customers choose it. Everything is driven by an API, whether that's for the operator, who are our customers, or whether that's for the end user. And it's designed as multi-tenant from the ground up, highly scalable, proven. It provides the usage monitoring for the monetization side of things. It doesn't actually do the monetization. That's what Sanando is going to talk about in a second. And key point, it's open source. The use cases around CloudStack, quite simple: private cloud, public cloud, hybrid cloud. And we as a company, we work roughly 50-50 between organizations who are running public cloud based on CloudStack and organizations who are using it as a private cloud implementation to bring some of the benefits of IaaS to their internal enterprise. Sort of companies we work with, just to put some names out there, people like KDDI Telehouse, who run a very large CloudStack deployment. Interroute GTT, again, they run, I think they run Europe's largest dark fiber network, and they run a very significant public cloud based on CloudStack, and a whole range of smaller service providers out there as well. We've also got lots of enterprise organizations. Interesting people like the University of Sao Paulo run one of the world's largest academic clouds based on CloudStack. Lots of different organizations, people like SAP, for example, TomTom run a large CloudStack environment. So CloudStack is out there. It's in widespread production use. The reason people get attracted to it is generally around that balance of functionality versus low cost of ownership. And as I mentioned, it's a project owned and governed by the Apache Software Foundation. This is the foundation that brought you the web server, brought you Cassandra, brought you Hadoop, and they have a reputation of building, long-term organic pieces of software that are going to be around for quite some time. And that's a really important factor when you're choosing your orchestration for an IaaS environment. So that's just my quick view. Hopefully you found that interesting. I'm going to hand over to Sanando now. Sanando is going to talk about more the monetization side, and particularly some of the products they've got over there, which can help you with that. Sanando, you online? I think you might be on mute, Sanando.
Yeah, sorry. Can you see my screen?
Well, good.
Okay, thanks, Giles. Thanks for setting the context. And so I think now you understand why CloudStack is core to building any successful public cloud IaaS business. But did you know that we can really extend your CloudStack setup or a CloudStack setup to actually offer anything as a service and become a true multi-service operator in the cloud business? And be it services like autoscale, Kubernetes, backup as a service, database as a service, or even partner with the hyperscalers like AWS, Azure, and Google and offer a multi-cloud story. And we have one of the questions today asking whether it's competing or complementing. Yes, in today's world, it is also complementing the services. So enabling cloud brokerage is also very important, or selling global SaaS platforms like Office 365, G Suite, Salesforce, or even if you want to sell your own self-hosted SaaS products like CDN as a service, local email, DNS, CRM, ERP, accounting, etc. All this in addition to selling CloudStack setup. And this is where we come in, where we not just enable monetization of CloudStack services, but a lot more. And that's what I'm going to talk about in the next few slides. So we have a certain thesis around what really goes into building a successful private cloud story. First and foremost is, of course, a robust, scalable, and modular technology stack. As Giles mentioned, you should be able to start small, but from a design perspective, it should scale seamlessly and, most importantly, without any customer disruption. Then comes the choice of orchestration platform. And like Shea Blue, we have also been on CloudStack since our inception, which is 2013, because we've always felt this is the best option for service providers and enterprises who want to run a lean and mean infrastructure as a service platform. Then taking the infrastructure story forward and actually integrating it for the customer lifecycle, which is capturing all the touch points around onboarding a customer, provisioning services, monetizing those services, providing the end customer support. So all those need to be very fluid and within the platform itself. And then the user experience. Today, cloud being a very commoditized service, the user experience is what is really important. So how well does it speak your brand? How well does it deliver your brand philosophy? Your brand values is very important. Then comes the actual monetization layer, which is enabling cloud native monetization, where you should be able to bill for resources on demand, on an hourly model, on a pay-per-use model, etc. And that whole billing and invoicing system should be very cloud native. And lastly, the operations management. Once the customer is live on your platform, how easy it is for them to get support from you, and how easy it is for your team to enable technical support, as well as business functions around accounting, finance, and marketing services. So if you have to look at these points, that's where our platform comes in. So our platform is called Hyperscalers, which is an all-in-one management and monetization platform built on top of CloudStack, which powers public clouds to take care of all aspects of technology, business, and operations. First and foremost, this is deployed completely off the premises of the CSP. So it is completely locally hosted, 100% white labeled, and running in your data center, in your environment. It is an integrated platform for complete automated provisioning, all kinds of billing, multi-service marketplace, and complete operations of not just CloudStack services, but any of the other services that is integrated on the platform. And then also extending from there, enabling you to run your marketing campaigns as an integrated feature from the platform itself. This entire platform is built for purpose for selling public cloud services. It is just for cloud and nothing else. So therefore, if you want to sell anything as a service, this is ideally built for that and can be extended to any form of digital marketplace or any form of digital selling of services. Out of the box, it is for infrastructure as a service cloud and can be extended to anything as a service in your market. And most importantly, it works independently or can be integrated to your existing billing and support systems. So you don't need to just use our systems. Also, if you already have investments in billing and support, we can extend and integrate into those systems. This is a quick view of where it sits as a stack. If you see the bottom two layers, that's the infrastructure layer plus CloudStack and Kubernetes running on top of the virtualization layer. On top of that, we provide two consoles. One is the CMP console, which is for your end users, where they'll see a complete marketplace and complete customer engagement, handle provisioning, billing, support, ticketing, ops, etc. Along with that, we will deploy admin console where we provide role-based access for any kind of account management, billing, product management, reseller management, etc., and also very comprehensive reports and BI system. We extend that further by deploying an open source ITIL-grade support management platform called OTRS and infrastructure and workload monitoring platform called Zabbix, which is part of the deployment, and your teams can use these to support the customers. And further extending that to any kind of third-party marketing and analytics platform using Google Tag Manager. We have a deep integration with Google Tag Manager, which further extends to about 200 odd marketing and analytics products, which can be integrated into this platform. From a roadmap perspective, from where the platform is right now, we are extending it further to trial automation, access using end users, AD or LDAP, support for Arabic and other right-to-left languages, self-service platform configurations, and a lot of advanced billing management, and coming up with a very interesting new UI on the platform. From a marketplace perspective, we are shortly launching backup service using Commvault, object storage using Cloudian. We already have a multi-cloud service with GCP and Azure. With AWS, we're launching GCP and Azure shortly. L7 load balancer service with HA proxy, virtual domain firewall services using Fortinet, and loads of other platform as a service on top of Kubernetes. We've been working with Shea Blue for almost 2.5 years now. We were earlier working with Citrix, which then moved to Accelerate Cloud Platform. But we realized that the direction we want to take and the kind of support we need from a CloudStack perspective, Shea Blue were the right partners. So we have engaged with Shea Blue for our entire customer base over the last 2 years, and for all the advanced technical support and code level support, we work with Shea Blue. And the front-end managed services, the 24/7 support, L1 and L3 support is done by our team. So it's a beautiful, synergy that we have set up with Shea Blue, and which enables us to deliver a very comprehensive SLA-based service to our customers on a completely open source driven stack. And Shea Blue has published a case study on that. So I would welcome all of you to go and check out the case study. That's it for me. Over to you, Yvette.
Thank you very much, Sunando, and thank you, Giles, for the interesting information which you have presented to us. There are a few questions. Before I start with them, if anybody has any questions, now is the time to put them on the chat. You can also use the raise hand option, and you can join live the webinar and ask your questions live. The first question is coming from Marcelo Oliveira. Should the title of the webinar be not compete with hyperscalers or complete the hyperscalers? Trying to compete with hyperscalers doesn't seem like a good strategy, but complementing their service by integrating them into a service provider portfolio. Would you share your thoughts on this?
Yeah, certainly. And that is a very good question, Marcelo. So just to recap there, is it not suicidal almost to try and compete with the hyperscalers? Surely we should be complementing them. And to a certain extent, yes. And actually, the title of this webinar is competing with them. But, most of our customers will have a multi-cloud strategy, right? They're not naive enough to realize that they don't need to partner with the hyperscalers as well. But the important thing is in terms of where the real margin is for them, where that stickiness is, where that pull along service relationship is in their own IaaS platform. So yes, most organizations will actually do some work with and effectively resell the hyperscalers. They have to, but the question is whether they also try and run their own IaaS as well. There probably isn't a service provider of any description anywhere in the world that isn't currently reselling one of the hyperscalers. That's almost a given. Okay, so yeah, it's a fair point. Maybe we should have said complementing the hyperscalers as our title, but I think the key messages here is, you know, why would you bother doing your own thing as well? And that is an important message, that there is absolutely still a marketplace for doing that.
Yeah, just to add to that, you know, what we are seeing, there are two kinds of markets that we cater to. Markets where the hyperscalers are directly present in terms of having their regions, and markets where they're not. So when they're directly present, our customers there have a very simple strategy. They will resell the hyperscalers, they will sell their own cloud, and they will pick up which workloads go on the hyperscalers and which workloads will go on their own cloud. Their discussion with the customer is like a total infrastructure outsourcing. You're a large enterprise, you give off your entire IT to me, I will optimize it. I will give you a managed services layer across whichever cloud infrastructure you may choose. And to you, you will have a single pane of glass on our platform and see everything, whether it's running on AWS, Google, Azure, or on our own cloud. And whatever is operating where, we will manage it, and we will give you an integrated single SLA for the whole environment. And that's working beautifully. And that's why we are also extending our brokerage services, where we are integrating with all the hyperscalers. We already do with AWS and integrating with the other hyperscalers.
Sunanda, one more question while you're talking for your platform. It's coming from our YouTube stream. So the question is there a white version of the product? And the person is saying, I don't need everything as a service, just VMs and networking are enough for my customers. So is this something which Epicurus can do?
Yeah, absolutely. So at a baseline, those are the services: virtual, compute, network, and storage is what we offer. And then if you want to extend that, then there are multiple integrations beyond that. But we have customers who are just running it for pure IaaS, and they can use our platform for that.
Thank you. And one more question in terms of strategy. There is a person who is asking, isn't it better actually just to resell somebody else infrastructure as a service than building and supporting and maintaining everything by yourself?
Yeah, I think Giles is already, sorry.
And again, it touches on the previous question. And again, I suppose with this webinar, we've made some assumptions, right, that people get the difference between the two. You know, we're talking about, if you're talking about building an infrastructure, yes, it's going to involve capital expenditure. It's going to involve running that infrastructure. It's going to involve operating that infrastructure. And it is a very easy thing to say, no, I'm just going to buy that from a hyperscaler, right? I'm going to buy that from somebody else and make some margin on it. But the key point is as a service provider, particularly as you get into smaller service providers, if you want to maintain that stickiness with your customers, you want to maintain that margin, you want to still be the pivot point for your customers in terms of their infrastructure, you're effectively just acting as a middleman when it comes to reselling. And yes, you've got to have that as part of your strategy, but I think you've also got to have the strategy of running your own infrastructure. Now, there is the option to white label somebody else's in the meantime, but that's effectively moving the problem from one place to another. But yeah, it requires capital investment. It requires time, effort, thought, and energy to build an infrastructure like this. The return is, hopefully, stickier customers and better margin.
Yeah, so just to put some numbers and context to this whole discussion, so we have done some research in this space, and so if you look at AWS and AWS partners over the last 7 to 8 years, when AWS initially launched their partner programs, they were giving margins in the range of 15 to 20% to their partners. Today, that's down to 5 to 10%, depending on which market and what services you're reselling from AWS. And this is going to get tighter. At some point, your SG&A, your sales, general, and admin expense of being an AWS reseller would be far more than what is the margin you're getting out of your reseller partnerships. And that's going to obviously kill your reseller business. So you don't have an option but to scale to other services, do managed services, etc. on top of that, and try to make some money. Whereas if you look at a case where you are doing reselling of these services, but you also run your own IaaS platform, if you build your IaaS well and scale it to a certain, even a medium level, your gross margins from IaaS is 50 to 60%. and you complement that with your AWS margins and managed services, your business will stand to hit an EBITDA of anywhere between 20 to 30%, which is fairly healthy as a cross structure. So it's for you to decide what you want to do. If you want to play a short-term game and earn some quick bucks, yes, reselling makes a lot of sense. But if you really want to build a long-term infrastructure as a service business, it is imperative that you look at building your own IaaS.
Thank you, Sunando. One more question. It's actually in regards to the Giles Magic Quadrant, which obviously is very interesting for our webinar attendees. So the question is the cost of ownership increasing towards the bottom of the graph? And one more question related to this. People are hearing a lot about OpenStack and CloudStack, but what is actually the difference and how they can be sure they're making the right choice?
I need to just quickly look at the graph again to remind myself if that, yes, I think it is. Yeah, the cost of ownership is increasing. So it's almost an inverse axis there. Key point there is CloudStack is incredibly cheap to own. OpenStack is very expensive to own. Sorry, what was the second bit of the question?
What is the difference between OpenStack and CloudStack, and how people can be sure they're making the right choice?
Yeah, okay, good question. Very long answer, which I'll try and summarize in a few seconds. For a long time, going back a few years, CloudStack and OpenStack was seen as the two-horse race. The analyst community wanted to see these two things and wanted to pick a winner between the two. OpenStack went the route of effectively trying to become effectively the cloud operating system for basically any organization. CloudStack was always much more limited in its scope. It was designed primarily for service providers. It was an integrated product. It didn't try and solve all of the world's challenges. And where we end up now is that, generally people who want to build a public cloud offering to get it in the market in a sensible time and make sensible margins go to CloudStack. OpenStack is often used by vendors as a toolkit to go and then create their own thing. Two quite different things, and there's a lot published on this. If whoever's asked the question wants to share their details, I can send 101 links sort of comparing the two. But yeah, two slightly different technologies.
Okay, let's move to the rest questions because we have a lot of questions on the Q&A window. I will start with the first one. How do we maintain parity with the cloud services? AWS, GCP, Azure constantly launch new products. How can a service provider stay relevant in a competitive situation like this? And how important is it to maintain parity with hyperscalers?
Okay, so if you look at the service portfolio of any of the hyperscalers, I think each of them run 70, 80, 90 products. But if you really look at the revenue breakout of across these products, your top 3 or 4 products account for 70% of their revenues, which is, for let's say in case of Amazon, it is EC2, S3, EBS, and their RDS service. So. And that's the case with most service providers. Obviously, other products are also important, but the meat of the pie is in the core infrastructure services, and that's what everybody is running after. And obviously now that's extending beyond virtualization or VMs to containers and the container as a service platform. So from our strategy perspective, we are also building a portfolio of the core services first. And frankly, for other services, you might as well go and have a multi-cloud strategy and use the hyperscalers. And that's why the cloud brokerage integrations also become important. The key issue here is that for the end customer, if you can give a single pane of glass for them to manage all their requirements, where their core IaaS can run on your self-hosted IaaS platform and any of the advanced services, let's say they have a hyperscale big data problem they are solving on Amazon or Google, and you are able to offer that platform also from your system and give them a single bill for everything. I think that's the key here. Trying to be everything to everyone is not commercially feasible. Hyperscalers are hyperscalers for a reason. You can't do everything for them, but take the most meatiest bits, which is the infrastructure bits and containers and databases, etc. And for the other things, you partner with the hyperscalers, and sell their services. That's my take on it.
Yeah, and I wouldn't disagree with that. I suppose the only other thing to add is that supporting what Sunando says there is, a vast proportion of the services that are being developed by the hyperscalers are ultimately routes to selling that higher margin stuff, which is the lower level infrastructure stuff, right? Which is ultimately the network, storage, compute. The other thing to add to that is don't underestimate we assume the market always wants all of that functionality, but when we start to get particularly into the enterprise space and what have you, a lot of those organizations want to take control of a lot of that enhanced functionality themselves and have a suite of solutions around that next layer up, and that means they're not necessarily rushing for all of the services that are being delivered by the hyperscalers. Okay, and that's borne testament to the customers we work with in terms of the growth they're still experiencing. We're still seeing that.
Thank you, Giles. One more question in regards to the Apicus. The question is, how is it different from other solutions like HostBio, StackBio, and WHMCS? And also, what CloudStack version does Apicus support?
Okay, so HostBio, WHMCS, and all have a very, very high-level integration with CloudStack, primarily for billing basic IaaS services. And setting that up is not straightforward. It's not very customizable. It's not very granular. What we have done is we have built something ground up for CloudStack. So we have taken all the core CloudStack functionalities, brought it up onto the platform using the CloudStack API, and enabling monetization of each and every aspects of the CloudStack service and product portfolio. So I would say ours, amongst all the softwares available in the market, is the deepest integration into CloudStack, and we're continuing to build that with all the new features that are coming out. From a version support, so we actually maintain parity with the CloudStack LTS, which is currently 4.15.1. And so we maintain that, and we support one version prior also. So we have two of our customers running on 4.13 also, or 4.14 also. And so current LTS and -1 is what we support.
Thank you, Sunandam. Going with the next question, how does CloudStack compares to OpenNebula in terms of ease of deployment and long-term maintenance, and what differentiates one from the other feature-wise?
Good question. In terms of ease of deployment, let's start with the clouds, not necessarily doing a direct comparison, but to install and to start deploying VMs on CloudStack in a very basic, POC style configuration is a couple of hours work. Realistically, to a production grade deployment is weeks, in terms of weeks of project instead of months of project. I actually don't know how that compares to OpenNebula today. I know a few years ago, CloudStack was much quicker to deploy. I honestly don't know where that compares today. In terms of then the ongoing management, the key point with CloudStack is it is predominantly a user-driven community. So, CloudStack isn't driven by a software vendor. CloudStack is driven by its user community. And there's people from a lot of those logos I showed you earlier. There's people in our community who are directly from those organizations who are contributing to CloudStack. Now, OpenNebula has a significant company sat behind it, and I believe a lot of the development comes from that organization. I know it is still an open source technology, and that presents risks as far as I'm concerned, and also presents potentially operational costs and that sort of thing. From the CloudStack side, I can say CloudStack is a very, very simple, easy to deploy product. In terms of functionality, I think what sets CloudStack apart probably is its very, very deep virtual networking model, which is used by most of the organizations who are using it, which lets companies produce some quite complicated networking infrastructures inside their IaaS environment.
We are currently moving a customer from OpenNebula to CloudStack, and one of the biggest reasons they want to move out of OpenNebula to CloudStack is the networking stack.
Okay.
Thank you for the addition, Sunando. Next question is there a video which is presenting the installation of CloudStack, installing Netscaler, etc.?
Yeah, I'm sure we can find some links if we. I can see that in the window myself. It's from somebody anonymous. If
you can send us actually your email address, we'll
yeah.
be more than happy to send any links. And maybe one more thing, it's a perfect time to announce that in November we will have the CloudStack collaboration conference. So we will definitely have a session about the introduction to CloudStack, and there will be some workshops on the topic. You're more than invited to join the event and to see this live and actually do this with us. And as we're going to the end of the time, two last questions. What is the difference of vendor-supported CloudStack versus open source CloudStack, considering technological and financial challenges?
Okay, very, very good question. And maybe that's something I should have touched on in more detail earlier. There is only one distribution of Apache CloudStack, and that is the free and open source Apache 2 licensed version of Apache CloudStack. There isn't a vendor hardened version. There isn't a a bolt-on services version offered by different organizations. Shea Blue helped distribute that, but that isn't our distribution. Okay, that is the free and open source version of Apache CloudStack. And every single organization I mentioned earlier is running the free and open source version of Apache CloudStack. There is no other. In terms of then maintenance and support services, that's a lot of what we do as a company at Shea Blue, but we do that as a services engagement with our customers as opposed to a licensing engagement, because we believe in that open source model. We believe our customers should be running open source software, so they're in control of their own destiny. They can make changes themselves. They're not relying on a specific vendor. But really important, CloudStack, the open source version, is CloudStack, and that actually differentiates it from a lot of the other open source technologies we were talking about earlier. I mentioned OpenStack, for example. Hardly anybody takes the pure open source distribution of OpenStack. They will choose the vendor distribution of OpenStack. CloudStack only has that one distribution.
And Giles, there is another person who is asking, we all know that CloudStack is a hypervisor agnostic solution. So the question is, which hypervisor is the most efficient for running CloudStack in a hyper-converged environment?
Okay. I have to be careful when I answer that one. We see a lot of trends with hypervisors. The short answer is any of them. And that choice is initially made by what tooling and what skill sets the organization has. So if you've got an organization that's born and bred around Zen, they will probably go with Zen. If you've got an organization that's born and bred around KVM, they will probably go with KVM. We are seeing a trend, surprises a lot of people. CloudStack actually does support VMware, and that decision was made for the same reasons, that there was already a significant VMware investment in an organization. We are seeing a trend away from VMware. That's mainly a financial trend, and that's by layering on things like CloudStack, you're abstracting away from the consumer of that infrastructure. You're abstracting what hypervisor it is. We are roughly, I would probably say, in terms of our customers, KVM is the most widely deployed, followed by VMware, followed by I say Zen, but that's now Zen and XCP-NG, which is the new fork of Zen, and then a scattering of other things. That really is dependent on the use case. It's dependent on the organization in terms of if you're trying to get me to say which hypervisor would I choose, that they're the reasons I would choose the hypervisor. Any
recommendations from you, Sunando?
Yes, so I'll tell you our journey, and since we do the managed services, so we handle all these hypervisors at our end. So we started with Zen because the initial integrations of CloudStack was mostly with Zen and the deepest integration with Zen. But then Citrix took a different direction, XCP-NG came up. So then I think about 2 years back, we decided to look at KVM And we see the maximum new features which are coming out are KVM centric. Even the new project around the networking integration is a big thing coming up next year. That is largely KVM centric. So KVM is something that we are favoring. VMware still makes a lot of sense because, especially in private clouds where a lot of the application vendors specify hypervisor choice, they typically say ESXi as the hypervisor they would recommend. So what we recommend is, especially in a public cloud, like you go to Amazon, you have a native Amazon cloud, you have VMware on Amazon. So we recommend service providers to look at a similar strategy where they may have a native cloud which is running on KVM or Zen open source, and they have a premium offering which is running on ESXi, so VMware on their cloud. That actually makes a lot of sense. You can have a differentiated service, differentiated SLA, and offer it as an add-on for any customer-centric specifications around using ESXi hypervisor.
Thank you, Sunando. Thank you very much, Giles and Sunando. As we're running out of time, I suggest that if anybody has any questions, we will follow up with the slides. There is contact information. You can ask us personally on email, and you can also explore the CloudStack mailing list, which is quite active. So if you have any technical questions or questions in terms of implementation and integration, you can ask them live there. Thank you for the speakers. It was really a pleasure to have you here today.
Thank you, Beth, for organizing such a lovely session. Look forward to doing more.
Thank you. And once again, announcing we will have the CloudStack yearly collaboration conference. It's live, and we have an open call for speakers. So if you have anybody in the attendees list who would like to share success story or have a talk on the conference, you're more than invited to join. Thanks for joining this webinar, and have a